Alright, hello. Welcome back to our Shadow Empire tutorial series. This is the second video in our series. In this video we're going to talk about, it's going to be kind of like a first few turns kind of look at things. Before we get into the video though, I just wanted to say thanks to everybody who watched and liked the previous video that we did, our sort of getting started video. Got a pretty small channel here and doesn't really get much traffic on YouTube. YouTube seems to bury and hide my videos and all my stuff pretty effectively. So the fact that you actually found my video and watched it and liked it, I really do appreciate that a lot. So thanks guys, I appreciate that. But yeah, so as for this video, the first video is basically just, the idea was just to kind of get you into the game and give you an idea of what exactly it is you're looking at. Because obviously, you know, coming into a game like this, it can be pretty daunting. There's so much stuff, you have no idea what the hell's going on. So it was basically just meant as like an orientation video. In this one, we're going to be looking at how your first couple of turns might play out, the different things that you're going to want to maybe consider and look at and do. So we're going to be discussing things such as the councils that we alluded to in the previous video. So we'll take a look at all the different councils. We'll talk about leader appointment, how to sort of examine your leaders and get an idea of who should be in which role and all that kind of stuff. We're going to talk about the all-important bureaucratic points, which are sort of the lifeblood of your empire in the game. We're going to talk about stratagems, what some of them do, you know, how to play them and when you'd want to use them and that kind of stuff. And then we're going to take a little bit of a look at just a quick idea about maybe some initial expansion considerations and how you might want to go about that. Alright, so let's take a look at these councils. So first of all, we have the Economic Council. As the name implies, they're going to research some of your economic texts, right? So you've got all these texts here with the EC, as we alluded to in the previous video. These are economic texts, so the Economic Council is going to research those for you. And in addition to that, they also do things like prospecting, and which is like just finding resources out on the map. So there'll be hidden deposits of like, you know, oil or water or, you know, metals or whatever. If you have the Economic Council set to some prospecting activities, over time they'll gradually find these resources for you, which is super important. And they also generate economic policies for you, like economic stratagem cards that you can play and make economic decisions and stuff like that. So it's a really good council to have, obviously. Military Research Council, as the name implies, these are going to research your military techs. Model design, again, pretty self-explanatory. They design your models for you. The Staff Council is kind of an interesting one. So what they do is they deal with custom formation types. So as an example here, this biker guy, there's 6 subunits in this biker guy. So we have 3 units of militia biker. They come in hundreds. So you got 3 units of these guys and 3 units of militia buggy. So it's a special formation comprised of bikes and buggies. Well, what the staff formation does, it allows you to create your own custom formation types, right? So maybe you could design a unit that's got maybe infantry and artillery and, you know, man pads or whatever, like whatever you want. So you can use them to design special custom ones. And they can also design custom army formations that are full-on formations, which are really, really handy. So if you want like mechanized infantry, you can set that up. And it also has a whole bunch of like preset, like pre-designed templates that you can kind of research and discover. But you can also get, customization points, which I think I alluded to in the last video actually, up here. Yeah, customized points. Right now we don't have any, but the Staff Council will generate these, and you use those to generate your custom formations. So that's a pretty handy council. The Secret Service Council is going to generate stratagem cards with regards to spying and things like that, like kind of shady activities, you know. So maybe you want to spy on your neighbors, you can play stratagem cards on them to gather intel, like recon on them, to see some of their lands and some of their, you know, their hexes. You can also gain data, intel on their empire itself. So in one of those screens we were talking about before, so if we look here, regimes, and if we knew about another regime here, we'd see them here. But like basically you see all these tabs with information on them. If you've got a lot of recon on their empire with lots of spies, you're going to get this kind of information about the, you know, the foreign nation. So you can see what they're all about, see what they've got, that kind of thing. So it can be pretty handy to have the Secret Service. They also do things like maybe you've got a leader who's pissing you off and he really sucks and you really like him out of your empire. Well, you can maybe kill them. You can kill them with the Secret Service Council. They've got some cards to assassinate leaders or intimidate them or all that kind of stuff. So basically your Spy Master Council. The Foreign Affairs Council, as the name might imply, this is dealing with other nations with diplomacy. So if you're looking to maybe have a victory pact, right, with some of your neighbors, you can do that with the Foreign Affairs Council, or maybe you want to diplo-annex people, or maybe you just want to keep your friends and enemies at bay, and you don't want to just use diplomacy to kind of manage them. Foreign Affairs Council is is how you're going to do that. The Interior Council, they help you with governance, so things like stratagem cards involving like taxes, things like that, or with leader recruitment, they help with that. So a lot of little things like that. It's a handy council to have if you need a little bit of help with just some internal policies and kind of stuff like that. So that's a good one to have. Applied Science Council. This is one of my favorite councils, and I think it's one of the most slept on. A lot of the content that I've watched on YouTube where people are playing Shadow Empire, wow, they really skip over this one. I don't see enough people talking about this. I don't understand it. This is one of the most powerful councils in the game. So basically what this does, I'll take you over here. They do applied science tech. So these ones here, applied engineering, and we have applied chemistry, and I guess applied management and all that. So AP, that's the Applied Science Council. And so the way these techs work, and of course we'll go into this in more detail in the video that covers techs, but you have binary techs and you have linear techs. So binary techs will be like this, for example, power plant. That's a binary tech. You either have the tech or you do not, right? Applied tech is linear, which means when you research it, you don't like get the tech and then you have it. You gradually gain points in the tech. So you like 5%, 6%, 10%, 12%. Your level in the tech goes up and up and up. And the more you have in that tech, the more powerful it gets. And it, as time goes by, it gets harder and harder to increase it more and more, like as it gets higher. But they're really, really powerful techs. Like as an example, conventional small arms optimization. The more of this you have when you design a guy who uses a conventional small arm, like a shotgun or a machine gun, the more of this you have, the more of a bonus that design is going to get to its stats. So these are really powerful things, really, really powerful things. So don't sleep on the Applied Science Council. I swear the Applied Science Council wins games. Because when you combine this with field testing, which is something, again, we're going to talk about in the model design video, that is immensely powerful. So that's what Applied Science does. It's really good. You're going to want it at some point. And then Air Force Research Council, again, as the name implies, will research your Air Force tech. So which one do you pick, right? Well, if you look through your model designs and you say, okay, well, maybe my designs are crap, I really want to redesign them. You could do that. You could start off with the model design if you really got a bad roll of the dice, which in our case we did not. Our infantry's really great. Our buggies are really great. The trucks aren't great, but they don't really matter that much at this stage. And then the machine guns are not great, but we can work on that. You're just looking at things like that. Military research, you could do that. Maybe you want to hit the ground running with some diplomacy. You can do that. If you're not sure, the Economic Council is a really solid choice in my opinion, because you start getting your basic economic techs, like if we look here, like power plant, like barracks, like like hospital, particularly solar energy, you know what I mean? Sealed road, like you get all these really important early game techs. In addition, you start prospecting and all that kind of stuff, so we'll do that.
Understood.
And you'll say understood, and we got it. Now, of course, it's good to know that it costs political points to create these councils, and with every subsequent council appointment, it will be more and more expensive. And you can always, like, the game is going to offer you every so many turns, hey, would you like to add a new council? And you can also call your secretary. In here, if you click on reports, you can call your secretary at any time, and you can add a new, well, we did one this turn, so we can't, but like once a turn, you can add a new organization. So you can do it as often as you like. Just bear in mind that all of your bureaucratic points, which we'll talk about in a moment, are split amongst all of your councils. So, you know what I mean? So it's kind of, if you want to focus on one, you might want to hold off. But yeah, we'll always get to that. So that's the councils, basically. All right, let's take a look at leader appointment now. So if we click on the management tab and then go over to the leader tab at the top here, you get a list of all the different leaders in your empire. And this is one of the things you kind of want to do at the start of the game, just to make sure that you've got the right leaders in the right roles, because the game doesn't put the best leaders in the best roles that you have. It basically just generates random leaders, throws them in random roles, and says good luck. So you want to go through here and you want to make sure that you've got the right people doing the right jobs. So how do you do that? Well, there's a few different things you can look at. So right now we have 3 different things we can sort these people by: relationship, capability level, and natural relation point. If you want to add more categories here, you can do that by going over on the left here, and there's all these different things about them that you can add. So like maybe we want to sort these people as well by their bribery skill, so we can add that, and as you can see, none of them have any bribery. Or maybe their diplomacy skill. Oh look, Nadia has 34 diplomacy skill. You see what I mean? So you can do that, but for the time being, this is pretty much all the info you really need right now without clicking on them. So basically what we have is we have a Cat 5 in our secretary, which is funny. That's not necessary at all. We got a level 3, a Cap 3 governor, which is pretty good. We've got a Cap 2 reserve pool member. He might be useful, maybe. And then we have 3 Cap 1s, which are just useless. So we have a Cap 1 in our SHQ and a Cap 1 as our Director of Supreme Command Council. So we got problems. We don't want this at all. That sucks. So why does this suck? What does it all mean? Let's take a look at one of these characters and just have a look at their stats and discuss what the stats mean. Okay, so a lot of information on this page. Don't be discouraged. We'll go through it step by step. So Nadia SM, she is currently the governor of Polymer, and Polymer, of course, is our capital town. So we want somebody really good in here. So let's go through her stats real quick, just bit by bit here. So Nadia SM, she's currently the governor of Polymer, which is our capital. She's 40 years old, and characters do age. Once they reach a certain age, they're going to retire, or they might get weak and die, or whatever. So you want to maybe look at slightly younger people. Relationship is 80. That's not bad. It goes from 0 to 100. Above 50, you get bonuses to their performance. Below 50, you get penalties. The relationship is based on a lot of stuff like decisions you make. If she likes the decisions you make, her relationship will go up. If she doesn't, they'll go down. In addition to that, there's something called natural relation point. As you can see there in the pop-up, she has a natural relation point of 51. And that is based on all the different criteria you see underneath that. So one part of that's loyalty. She's getting 61 points for that. One part's job prestige at 38 points. One part is average happiness of the populace for her zone, of course, which is 77, so it's not bad. And then 2 parts, the most important one, leader profile match with regime profile is 0. That's really important to see. We're getting a huge penalty because her profile is misaligned with ours. What does that mean? We see profile here. This is basically how she thinks. This is like her politics, essentially. Like, you know what I mean? This is her politics, and apparently this is out of line with us. So she loves heart, hates fist, and likes government. Well, let's take a look at what we have. So she loves heart, which we don't have. She hates fist, which we do have. And she loves government, which we don't have. So she's completely misaligned. So what does that mean? What that means is every time we go to make a decision to improve one of those profiles, she's going to hate it. You know, she hates fist, and we apparently have fist. So every time we do a fist decision, it's going to piss her off. So whenever we make our decisions to improve our profiles, she's going to hate it. Her relationship's going to go down, which is going to eventually lower her loyalty, lower her natural relation point over time. She's going to be a pain in the ass. So her stats aren't bad. She's got nice stats, but her relationship with us is going to suck over time. So that's something really important to keep in mind. Like if you just look at her stats and say, hey, great, and you don't consider this, that could really bite you in the ass towards the end of the mid-late game when she just hates you and you just can't pay her off enough to keep her happy, and she's just a pain in the ass. So she's going to be a problem. So bear that in mind when you look at her stats. But just going back to this natural relationship point, as you can see, it just takes all these criterias, averages them out, you know, and modifies for your ward score and all this other stuff and their salary and all that jazz. And so we end up with a final value of 51. So what that means is her relationship with you every turn will slowly and gradually trend towards 51. Right now, of course, it's 80, and therefore we're losing points. So as you can see at the top there, relation change logs, -2 due to relationship was higher than natural point. That's going to change over time. So even though we're making decisions trying to make her happy, which will help, over time, she's just going to gradually trend towards 51. So she's going to be a pain in the butt. Loyalty is basically, well, it's loyalty. As your happiness gets higher than loyalty, loyalty goes up. And vice versa. Low loyalty can make her rebel on you and all that kind of stuff. So you want to try and keep her happy. Seniority rank really just measures how senior she is in your organization. Things like firing her if she's super high seniority, and it goes from 1 to 100, and higher is more senior. And so if you fire a high seniority leader, not only will it piss them off a lot, but it can even affect lower seniority people, and they might take a bit of a hit to their happiness. The suitability score is just a quick sort of judgment of her skills versus the current job she's in. So the game is deciding based on these skills, she's 32% 32 suitability score as the governor of Polymer, which isn't bad. She's got some basic stats for that, so that's all right. I don't tend to go by that personally. It's a quick at a glance, oh, okay, they got suitability, put them in there, but like if you're new and you're just not interested in really looking at all these stats, you can use this. I wouldn't recommend it. I'd recommend coming in and looking at these stats once we talk about them, understand a little better. Technical rating, command rating, and interpersonal rating, in my humble opinion, these are useless. These don't need to be here. This doesn't tell me anything. What this means, technical rating as an example, so you can see the different skills she has, right? She has all these skills. You can see they're divided up into categories like colors. Green skills, your blue skills, your yellow skills, and your gray skills. Literally all this is, technical rating of 75 means of the green skills, her highest is 75. Of the blue skills, her highest is 0. Of the yellow skills, her highest is 64. That's literally all that means. So, yeah. In my opinion, don't look at this. This is not helpful. If you want to judge a commander or a leader or whatever, come in here and just look at the skills properly. That's what I would do. Then, of course, we have her profile, which we talked about. So, as an example, she really, really loves heart. If we make a decision that supports heart, she's going to love it. She hates fist and she likes government, right? So, that's just this. That's what this means. So you can quickly judge their politics, compare them to your own. If they're out of whack, which hers are, you might not want to hire them or use them or whatever. And then we have their stats. So you have strength, intelligent, war, charisma, willpower, and capability level. Strength is just things for like personal combat and stuff like that on combat rolls. Intelligence affects all of these skills. As you can see, intelligence here, you got war here, charisma, willpower there. So intelligence affects the green skills. Basically, the way that the stats do this is it's once they reach a certain threshold, it becomes basically stat plus skill plus feat, which we have none right now. You can play stratagem cards on these leaders to give them extra stats, but it's basically skill plus intelligence plus feat equals total. So as you see, 29 plus 46 is 75. You know what I mean? 34 plus 30 is 64, and so on. So it doesn't have the same effect when they're low skill. As an example right here, as you can see, she has 7 administration skill, but she has 34 total skill. Obviously 7 plus 46 is not 34. So the effect is diminished when their skill is below a certain threshold. But once it reaches that threshold, she gets the full benefit of it. And a high int, of course, as you can see, high skills can force a basic competency in all skills. As you can see here, she has no intimidate skill, but her 30 charisma is giving her 17 actual skill. Like these are the skills that are actually checked. You see what I mean? So it's good to kind of know that. And so these are all your stats. And then capability level is a bit of a special stat. So this basically informs how fast they learn. It also informs their starting stats and skills. And this ranges from 1 to 5. So it's a really quick at a glance, how good is this leader? If you don't want to look at stats, and I recommend you do, but I can understand if people look at this and feel a bit of intimidated or just not interested in all these numbers and stats, like, what is this, right? If you're just not sure, look at the capability level. That's a super quick and dirty, I don't care metric of how good this leader is. But obviously, you definitely want to check their profile. So this is, like I said, this is going to affect starting skills, starting stats, and how quickly they learn. So when leaders perform skill checks, they're going to be gaining experience. And what they do is they actually spend this experience to improve their skills. So if we look at her skill log over here, sorry, my mistake, the history, you can see last round, she spent 8 experience points to improve science with 1 level, right? So if we look back at here, you can see she has 1 science. So she spent some experience points to gain some science. And so the more experience points she's gaining, right? If she has lots of capability, though, that means she's going to get more experience points. The more, the more skills she's going to be able to buy, and the quicker she's going to level up. So this is basically how quickly she's going to get better. Now, going into the skills themselves, there's some tooltips that'll help you. Like trade, as an example, helps governors stimulate trade in their zones. Also a big boon to the negotiating with traders, which is the SHQ commander. So you kind of get an idea of which skills will affect which characters. So as an example, as a governor, the trade, as the thing said, trade is good for them. Agriculture is good. So if she has a good agriculture skill, the farms in her zone will be more effective. If she has good scavenging, the scavenging assets will be more effective. If she has good prospecting skill, she'll be more likely to help with the prospecting efforts in the zone, which is basically, you know, finding new nodes of resources, which is really important, by the way. These are really good skills for the governor to have as well, like charisma skills. So like oratory, she's gonna have to make sometimes speeches, or she have to convince you know, union bosses to do stuff, right? And this will help with that. Or streetwise will help with certain decisions. Sometimes you get bad events, and it's these skills that help this governor negotiate through those bad events and help you from taking huge penalties. So for the specific example of the governor, it's some of these skills, like I said, with some of those. If you want like a military commander, you want like for your supreme headquarters, you want high command, you know what I mean? For your operational headquarters, which we'll talk about later, you want operational command, you know what I mean? For your scientists who are going to be doing research for you, well, obviously you want science, you know. For your model design, you want things like inventor and technician. Those will help with that sort of stuff. So it's just basically going through these skills and looking at, okay, what makes sense for the current role, and does this character meet the requirements? But in the early game, when you're just setting this kind of stuff up, your characters aren't going to have, for the most part, particular skills. So what you're really looking at is stats and capability level. Do the stats matter? In this case, stat-wise, I'm perfectly happy with Nadia for the governor, but her politics are way out of whack. So she's no good. So that's just kind of one example. Let's take a look at Vita Ironborn here. Now, by contrast, you can see she's a cap 1, which sucks. She has low stats as a result of being a cap 1. Low stats. She's going to learn slowly. She's, you know, no skills. She sucks. And she hates everything. She's just angry. She hates commerce. She hates autocracy. She hates militia. She hates everything. So you wouldn't want her in your empire at all. This chick sucks. So what do you do about it? Well, what you do is you fire her. So you can call from this screen here, or you can click here, call.
Standing by.
What you can do is say relieve. So relieve from duty.
Understood.
And then what you're going to get is this pop-up saying, if you fire a leader with considerable seniority ranking, if you recall we talked about that, will have their following consequences. Same faction members will suffer negative 10% to the relation, and again, we'll talk about factions in a bit. Other leaders will suffer minus 4%. If you make a promise of a better job, the effect on other leaders will be halved. So we have 3 options. We can give her a better job, other job, or no job. So basically you're saying you're fired, but we'll give you a better job, or you're fired, but we'll give you a different job. Not necessarily better, but we'll give you like a lateral shift, you know, it's just a different job. Or you can fire her and give her no job. Just say, get out of here, because you suck. Which is what we're going to do, because she sucks. So we're going to fire her and give her no job.
Understood.
Now, as you can see, her relationship diminished by 38 points. So now she's just a reserve pool member. So as you can see, we lost 38 points with her, because she's angry. And we lost relationship with leaders of the same faction, and 4% for other people. That's based on her seniority, like we talked about. We'll talk about factions and all that kind of stuff later. So now you can see she's just a reserve pool member. So what do we do now? Well, we definitely want somebody in this position. So maybe we've got someone else who can do it. So Clyde here, he's also a reserve pool member, so he's available. So he could fill in. So let's see, do we want him for that? He's got 36 in, which is okay. Cap 2, which is better than the other chick, right? He doesn't have any particularly helpful skills for that just yet, but he can learn over time. So he's not great, but let's say he'll do. So let's say we want to put him in, or maybe what we'll do is we'll show off something else real quick while we're on the topic. You can actually recruit new leaders through stratagems, and again, stratagems we'll talk about in a little bit. Yeah, here we are. So if you go into the nation tab of your, well, here I'll show you. Stratagems up here, and then nation tab over here. These are different stratagems related to your nations. You got taxes and all that kind of stuff. Right now you can recruit a leader, recruit junior. So this is going to give you, for 8 political points, which is this here, this is going to give you a young leader, a new fresh leader. You don't know his stats, you don't know his skills. It's going to randomly roll one. Let's see what we get. And maybe he'll be better than Clyde.
Understood.
So we got a new reserve pool member now, and this is him, Gordon Ashdown. Cap 2, 27 in. Okay, so he's not as good as Clyde, but whatever. So, but he is aligned. He likes commerce and fist, and we have commerce and fist, which is nice. But let's see what Clyde's like. So Clyde is more intelligent, but he is less aligned. If we were to play with these profiles, Clyde is a better leader in general, but he's less aligned. So he's going to be a bit of a pain. So yeah, just for the sake of demonstration, this guy does not have as good int, so his stats won't be as high, but he's going to be a lot easier to keep happy. So why don't we go with Gordon? So let's show how that works. So now we have two reserve, well, we have three. But we have these people as reserve pool members. So what's going to happen is we're going to roll the turn, and next turn we're going to get a decision, which is going to ask us who we want to put in that role. So I'm going to go ahead and advance the turn, and we'll see what happens. All right, so here we are in the next turn. Let's take a look at our decisions and find our organization decision. So your decisions are categorized by tabs up at the top. So if we look at organization decision, so as you can see, Supreme Command Council needs a leader. So let's say we want Gordon for this. As you can see here, the suitability rating that we talked about, remember, this is based on the skills and the stats. So based on skills and stats, you can see Clyde is actually a better candidate, but we know that Clyde is less aligned politically than Gordon. So he can be a pain in the butt, potentially. Whereas Gordon's going to be very easy to keep happy. So we're gonna assign Gordon. So to do that, you literally just click a point. Now as you can see, these are leaders that were not nominated because they were in our reserve pool. Let's say, for example, we really wanted Vita Ironborn to be our thing. What we could do is we could dismiss one of these candidates, and doing this would cost us 2 political points. It would also slightly piss off this guy and anybody in his faction. And faction is, as you can see, is denoted by the colored bars beside his head there. As you see, Gordon has none. He's completely unaligned to a faction yet. He could potentially join one later. We'll talk about factions in the next video. Yeah, let's say we wanted to appoint this guy, so let's pick him. So you click appoint.
Roger that.
And then you see he got relationship improved us by 32 points, which is great. And we got some little bit of bonus with other leaders because of seniority. And there we have it. So now we have Gordon. He is the new director of our Supreme Command Council. So that's how you replace leaders that suck with better leaders that suck less. And you're just basically trying to jockey people around to get the right people in the right role. And as we discussed earlier, you can also hire new leaders entirely via stratagems. And these stratagems are generated by your councils using bureaucratic points, which is what we're going to talk about next. All right, so let's talk about bureaucratic points finally. So this is one of the most important things in the entire game. So bureaucratic points are the lifeblood of your councils. So what do I mean by that? So let's take a look at our reports here. And so we have the Empire dashboard, which used to show this up until one of the more recent patches in preparation for the new DLC that's coming out. Your council breakdown was in here for bureaucratic points, but they've moved it here to Empire budget. So your councils now are going to be listed in here. So as you can see, we have 2 councils now. We start with the Supreme Command Council, always. And we just, in our last turn, we made the Economic Council. So we have these 2 councils here. So the way it works is, next turn's bureaucratic point production is going to be 74, which is a 16-point increase from this current turn, which is going to be 58, right? So if we go over here, we can see we gave the Supreme Command Council 39 bureaucratic points. We gave the Economic Council 19 bureaucratic points, which of course, if you add up, is 58. So what do these councils do with the points, right? So we're splitting our bureaucratic points amongst all of our different councils. So what do they do with them? Well, the Supreme Command Council is using 20 of them to generate political power, political points, right? These PP, political points. It's taking the other 19 to generate stratagems for us, which is why we are getting cards every turn, right? The Economic Council is taking the 19 we gave us. It's spending 10 to discover more techs. It's spending 4 on prospecting activities, and it's spending the other 5 on economic policies, and it's not spending anything on research because we haven't allocated that yet. So as you can see, we're sending 67% of the bureaucratic points we produce to the Supreme Command Council, and we're sending 33% to the Economic Council. You can change these values if you like. Now, how do you do that? Well, normally what you would do is you would call your secretary, and you would click on National Budget, and he could outline that for you. But the reason this is grayed out is because we already have that decision sitting on our desk. So it's actually right here, National Budget, right? So had this not just come up because we hadn't done it yet, we would have called him to do that. But here it is. It happens to be sitting here. So as you can see, 67% and 33%, we can just adjust it all you like to your heart's content. And of course, as you add more councils, you'll get more lines here, and you can just adjust them to your heart's content. And then you can actually lock them. So let's say, because, if you've got 5 councils and you adjust one, the others are going to move, and they might not move in the way you want. So what you do is say, okay, I want the Economic Council at 40. You can put it to 40, and you click lock. and then you can move the other ones all the way around. But of course, we only have 2, so it's not letting me move this. But if we had more than 2, you could lock this guy, and then moving this would move the remaining. Okay, and then you lock this guy, and then keep moving them down to however you like it. But so that's how you adjust your priorities like that. So let's say we want, yeah, we'll do 40%, and we'll do 40-60. We'll do a 40-60 split. So we do that.
Understood.
We can say confirm, and of course, as you see, Director Gordon Ashdown, relationship -4, we slightly lowered his funding, which pissed him off a little bit. So that's why he has -4 relations. So that's something to keep in mind when you go ahead and do that. And in addition to that, you can modify their priorities within the actual organization. So if we come back over here, you remember we're giving 60%, right, to Supreme Command Council. We're giving 40% to the Economic Council or whatever. But as you see, they have a breakdown of their own. So they're taking what we're giving them, and they're breaking it up like this, right? So 30% is going to political power, 30% is going to general stratagems, broken up like this. And Economic Council's evenly distributed his points or whatever. You can change that if you like. So how do you do that? Well, what you do is you go to your cabinet overview or wherever else you have a picture of your guy, but I like to go to cabinet overview. It's the simplest. And let's say we wanted to change the Supreme Command Council's priorities. So we can call him, and there's a button here that says priorities. So we click on that, and now we can tell him how to spend his political points that we're giving him, right? So within his own organization, we can say, well, no, I want you to give me more political power. So that's 70%, and then we drop 30% for general stratagems, right? So that's kind of how you can manipulate your different councils into doing what they want for you. And of course, we just set up a new economic council last turn, right? So this turn, we're automatically getting this priority list here saying, how do you want me to spend my stuff? So again, right now we're evenly split. So let's say, okay, maybe we want you to do more research, and then we lock it. And then we move the other ones. The research stays steady and the rest of them move. So say, okay, well, I don't want you discovering that much, so we can lock you at 10, right? And then, I don't know, let's do lots of prospecting, or maybe we'll split prospecting and economic policies evenly, and there you go. And then you can say confirm.
Understood.
And then he reshuffles his priorities just like you asked him, and that's that. So that's basically how your bureaucratic points are used. And so the more bureaucratic points that you allocate to each of these tasks, the faster and more effective they get done. So if we allocate more bureaucratic points and more priority to political power, well, the more political points we're going to get. You know, if we allocate more priority to, you know, Economic Council's research task, the more bureaucratic points that task receives, the quicker it's going to happen. So basically, if you allocate a bunch of points into researching something economically, like over here, the faster these texts are going to get researched. Or if you allocate a lot of points to discovery, we're going to discover these texts really quickly, which is, in this case, what you're going to want to do. You want to discover these texts first, of course, right? But so the more bureaucratic points you allocate to a task, the faster it happens. So that's what happens with your bureaucratic points and how they get spent and what they're used for. So that begs the question, how do you generate bureaucratic points? Well, the way you do this is with assets. So let's take a look at our city here and see what we have. So right now we have a high command bunker, which is giving us 25 political bonus points at the start of the turn. And this is not 25 political points. This is a modifier on top of your political point generation, a very small one, which just boosts it up a little bit. And then we're receiving 10 bureaucratic points. These are actual 10 bureaucratic points we're getting. So our Supreme Command bunker, which we start with, just straight up generates points for us. If we upgrade this high command bunker, we'll get more political bonus points, which is, again, not political points. It's a modifier on your political points. And we also get more actual bureaucratic points, 40. So this is one way you can do it, but this is not the most efficient way. So the best way to get bureaucratic points is with bureaucratic offices, right? Government buildings. So what you do is you click construct. Then you go over here. These are all the different things you can build, right, in your city. You click government. And here you have bureaucratic offices. So down here you have bureaucratic offices 1. So of course buildings can be upgraded to higher levels and get more and more powerful as they go and cost more workers. So basically these bureaucrat offices 1 will produce 50 bureaucratic points per turn. And as you can see, as they level up, right, the level 1 version produces 50. If you upgrade it to level 2, it produces 200. If you upgrade it to level 3, it produces 450, and then 800, and then 1250. So you can see that there's quite a scaling of the points these things provide. So this is the primary way of getting bureaucratic points. You'll probably want one of these in each of your cities if you can manage it. And we'll go deeper into the numbers here, what they all mean, how they all work and fit together, and how to handle that in a following video. But basically, bureaucratic points are generated by bureaucratic offices for the most part. Alright, so let's talk about stratagem cards. It's a really, really important part of the game. So you've got these cards that you get turn by turn from your different councils, and they're going to impact how the game plays. And they give you little bonuses and little events and stuff. So I've loaded up some random save game I had just to demonstrate the cards, because I don't have many cards in that tutorial playthrough we're doing. But this is just a save game I have. So as you can see, you tend to get a lot of cards as you play. So the cards are divided up into all these different categories. You have majors. So this is diplomacy with the major regimes. So as you can see, you can war with them, you can open contact, you can gift them, you can ask for help, and you can do all these kind of things just to keep them at bay or make friends with them or whatever. There's cards to interact with minor regimes, so you can protect them. You can potentially diplo-annex them using the Foreign Affairs Council, which will generate special cards for you. You have covert ops cards for sending spies and stuff like that. This is really helpful, really useful to get intel on the different regimes. You have nation cards. This is where you're going to recruit a lot of leaders. Your interior council also generates cards like cabinet retreat, which is really nice. Doing this one will give bonuses to all your leaders, give them XP and relationship and all that kind of stuff. So you get lots of cards. You can get corporation cards. You can get all kinds of stuff like decisions for your different cults and whatnot. I don't have any tariff cards right now, but you can impose tariffs. There's HQs. So these are interesting cards. So what these do is you play them on your operational headquarters, which is something we'll talk about a little later, but basically your command units for your army. So you have like an army, and then sitting above that army, you've got a command unit. Actually, I guess I could show you real quick here. Yeah, so right here, as an example, we'll look at the 4th Infantry Battalion or whatever. So this guy here, he controls all these units. So you can play cards directly on this command unit, and it's these ones here, and what they'll do is they'll give that whole army group a bonus. So hypothetically, if we were to play, I don't know, defense, right? Infantry forces get 40% on defense and minus 30% on attack. So if you're trying to hold a position, maybe play this card on your infantry, and they'll get a huge bonus to their defense, right? So, or you've got all these different ones like, Blitzkrieg, mechanized forces 60% attack and action points 30. So if you're going for a huge attack with your tanks or your mechanized forces, you can throw that on there, and they'll get a huge bonus. So there's all these different stratagems you can employ for your OHQs, which is really important. Lots of zone cards. You can bribe your population. You can invest in the private economy, which is really important. All these different things. You can get extra archaeology efforts, so you can maybe find more rare items, which you can dig up to get special rare cards. I don't know if I have any to show you. Yeah, I've got some here. So automated factory. So as an example, if you're to do archaeology, it's something that your economic council does along with prospecting. So sometimes they're going to find like a rare artifact in an archaeological dig in one of your ruins. And those artifacts come in the form of these blue cards here. They're free. They cost nothing to play. And they're amazing. It's like ancient Galactic Republic stuff. So as an example, this one here, an automated factory, a miniature version of the fabled automated factories of yore. So basically, this would give you just free industrial points, pretty much. It's crazy, and you get some really interesting ones. Subterran sensor, this will help you make archaeological finds. This gravitonic collector converts gravity to energy, So you can get some really cool artifacts. You can also get cards. There are artifacts that you literally play on leaders to give them like a pheromone device, helps their charisma stat, So there's all these kinds of things you can do from archaeological digs, which is kind of fun. There's cards you can play on your leaders. So, official gift. You can give 200 credits to a leader to try and make them happier if they're pissed off, or 0 retirement. If you just want to get your leader out of there, like that, what was her name? Vera? That level 1 girl who really sucked. Maybe we could play this on her and try and get her out of here without spending any money, or Or silver retirement. Spend a bunch of money and try and get them out of there, If you just don't want them in your regime. These are unit cards. So these are basically unit feats that you get from your cults. You can get them from different sources. Again, as you see, there's artifacts you can dig up to get them. You can get random fate card versions and stuff like that, rare ones. Like as an example, these priests here, these are what's called unit feats. So they embed with your troops. So as an example here, like let's just play one right here. So well, here's an example. Here's some. So we have our basic soldiers, we have our machine guns, more soldiers, and then these three here are unit feats. Negotiator, see how it says feat? Negotiator. If the troops the negotiators are embedded with attacks a unit, there's a 50% chance they can use their verbal skills to make it retreat. So you get extra, the enemy will retreat more. Or the mystic priest, right? The mystic priest is a resourceful fellow, helps the troops embedded to keep their readiness. So he helps keep your troops' readiness up. You know, the eternity guru helps them keep the morale up. So these unit feats are really cool. And then you have the MTH cards, which are to do with the Oceania expansion, which we're not going to touch in this video. Another little facet of the stratagem system is you can actually scrap them to try and get other ones. So as an example here, let's say we wanted to get rid of, you know, some of these stratagem, right? So what we can do is we can click scrap mode. And right now you see I have 79 scrap points because I've done a bunch of this in this game. But you can scrap unwanted cards to get scrap points, and then you can spend those scrap points to craft a new stratagem. And there's kind of special stratagems, kind of random ones, so I'll show you how that works. So propose peace. Why would you ever want to propose peace? Let's scrap that. So we have 3 of these cards. They're worth 1 scrap point each. So we have 79. So if I click scrap, if I scrap this guy right here, you see we get points for it. So we can scrap all these and listen to the horrible noise that it makes. And now we've generated a bunch of scrap points. So once you have enough scrap points to craft a stratagem, you can click craft stratagem, and this keeps getting more and more expensive as you go. So every time you craft a stratagem, the cost to craft another one goes up and up. But basically you can craft a stratagem. So if we hit craft, boom, this is what we made. So we made Enforcer Wheeler. A junior Enforcer Wheeler has been convinced to join us. If played, we get enforcement. So you can get people with this. Sometimes you can even get buildings. So let's scrap a bunch of other things. There is some theories in the community that you can sort of manipulate what type of random stratagem you get. Like this is another one here that we got earlier, Altruist and Trencher. That's a random scrap card. Timid Techie, right? So we have enough to make another one. There's a theory in the community, and I haven't been able to verify it myself, that the type of stratagem you get can potentially be based on which category you have highlighted when you craft the stratagem. Again, I haven't been able to confirm that. So like in theory, if you have like leaders and you click it, you might get a leader. If you're on your zones tab, maybe you'll get a zone related card like a building. Let's try it. Well, there you go. It worked. It worked that time. It doesn't always work. So that's up to you if you believe that. I don't know. I'm on the fence about it. I've tested it a bunch of times. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But see, this time we got a status surveillance, so we can get a surveillance station, which will give us extra security in our zone. And also give government +6 if we play it. So these can be really helpful. You can't get these cards any other way. Like this card just to randomly drop a surveillance station and give us 6 government. Like this doesn't exist in the game except through this scrap system. So you get kind of random generated cards. So it's kind of cool. So if you find yourself in a situation where you just got tons and tons of cards that you're not playing, it might be a good idea to scrap them, get some points, and see if you can get anything useful out of them. Alright, so that was a super quick breakdown of stratagems, and why don't we talk about just some quick initial expansion considerations, how you might look at that. So, as we discussed in the previous video, when you're looking around at your initial area, you're looking at things like what kind of people, what kind of regimes are next to us. So, we have Amanon territory, like we talked about. He's a minor regime. We have Altanar Empire, another minor, and again, minors are generally pretty weak. Again, not always. Some of the minors are quite strong, but most of them are reasonably weak. We have non-aligned forces, so that's really nothing. That's just like wastelands. There's nothing there. If there's anything there, it's going to be just like animals or whatever, or nomads, if that. So this is basically territory for the taking. What else? Yeah, this is all just territories. Or you can look on your strategic map and look on here. So we have, see, Amanan territory, Atanar Empire, non-aligned over here. So it's not a bad idea to explore non-aligned territory because they're not really fighting to win the game. They're just kind of there. The other territories, the miners also aren't really trying to win the game. They're just there to be conquered. If you happen to start next to any majors, you might want to be a little bit careful because they're going to be a little harder, but they are in fact competing to win the game. As you can see, we have a road leading this way out of our city, so that would like to tell me that Atanar Empire's capital is probably over here somewhere. It might be one of these ruins, but we don't know, but they're probably in that direction. So what I might actually do is I might send... Well, we've already got our bikes going that way, so that's okay. We can send maybe some militia up to explore this way. And as you can see, we explore a little bit of a radius around ourselves. So we can kind of flesh out our troops a little bit and explore our territory and try and get a bit of a buffer zone around our capital. So if we click on our city, you can basically see we have a little bit of danger. Not much, but a little bit of danger. And this is going to be based on whether there's enemy units nearby or if there's any uncaptured like enemy territory nearby. So you want to clear a few hexes, like I think it's around 3 or so hexes around your cities and make sure it's your territory. That way you don't get rising danger in your city, which can cause problems. So as you expand outwards, you're not only looking to take territory, but you're also looking to take towns like this for population for people to put into your cities. But you're also looking to take resource nodes like this. For example, this is a metal deposit. So you're going to need this to build like your tanks and whatever else, right? You'll put like a metal mine on here and start mining it. So if you look at here, you click on the hex right here and you can see down here metals level 7 and there's 25,000. So there's 25,000 metals in this hex here on this node and it's a level 7. And what this means is ease of mining. So the higher level it is, the easier it's going to be to extract that metal. And this ranges from 1 to 9. So a level 1, you're going to have a lot of trouble getting the metal out, and it's going to go super slow. Level 9 is going to go super fast. So a level 7 mine right next to our capital with 25,000, that's pretty darn good. That's a lucky start. So, and over here we have a level 8 water node, which is also pretty good. And as you can see, there's some ruins to the north of us. That's where you're going to get your rare metals, your oil, and your metals just from scavenging operations. There's also oil nodes, which give you lots of oil. There's dedicated rare metal deposits. You know, obviously there's water deposits. There's radioactive deposits. So you're kind of keeping an eye out for these different resource nodes. And as your economic council does the prospecting task, you will find more of these nodes in your territories. So basically at the start of the game, you're just trying to send your troops out, capture as much territory as you can. One thing you want to be mindful of, though, is enemy forces can cut you off. So in Shadow Empire, roads are basically metal and the enemy units are like magnets. So they're going to snap right to those roads and cut you off, which is bad because then you'll be out of supply, which we'll talk about in the logistics video. But basically you want to keep your troops in supply. You don't want to get them surrounded or they'll just basically wither and die. If you can, if you start to get bigger borders, of course you're going to want to get more units out there to cover your front lines. Like right now, hypothetically, if there was a unit here, he could run across and cut me off here, and then this guy would be out of supply, right? Or same thing down here. He'd come on and cut us off. As you can see, there's a unit here. We don't know what his plan's going to be. But yeah, that's something to keep in mind. You don't want to get cut off, so you want to make sure you plug as many of the gaps as possible in your lines as you can. See, how do you go about doing that? If we click our city and you click Raise Formation, you're going to get a list of all the different formations that you currently have researched. So right now we have infantry, we have machine gun, we have independent motorized infantry battalion, motorized machine gun, and recon buggies. So in the early game, recon buggies are really great because they give you recon. They move around the map really quickly. They've got great recon, which means they reveal the terrain quicker. So revealing terrain is actually based on recon levels, and obviously buggies have great recon, so they're a really good choice. So if you look at here, this is basically the percentage of the supplies that we need, that we have in order to build it. So we have 100% of what it's going to take to raise an independent battalion of infantry. Same thing with machine guns, but you see we only have 85% of the resources needed to make this particular one here, the independent motorized. And why is that? Well, you see it takes 2,000 troops, which we have. It takes 130 metal, which we have. It takes 2 political points, which we have. But it takes 130 industrial points, which we do not have. So You can raise a partial group, but they'll just start with less troops. I think you need at least 50% to raise it at all, and then you can trickle in the rest of the troops over time. So let's say, just for the sake of argument, we want to raise this buggy. Well, it's going to cost us 500 troops, 140 metal, 110 IP, industrial points, which we have, and 2 political points. So let's say we want to build that. And when you go to build these, there's different levels, right? These are the quality of the troops that you want to include in these. So we're just going to leave it on everything for now. Use SHQ troops. If you happen to have any troops hanging around in your SHQ that they're just kind of sitting there, you can include these to make it a little bit cheaper to build. Here it's either independent or with OHQ, and OHQ is an operational headquarters. This is the sort of like the multi-unit formation we were talking about earlier that you have a command unit in. But these are going to be a little more expensive. They're a little bit harder to get out in the early game. As you can see, we only build one at 58%, which we could technically do, but we'd only start with half of them. Or you can do independent, which is just like literally 1 unit count, or one unit. And here is the size. So we can do a battalion, a regiment, or a division. Obviously, it gets bigger and therefore more expensive as we go, but let's stick to a battalion because it's quick, cheap, easy. So we'll do an independent battalion of recon buggy. So we'll click recon buggy, and then we get this little pop-up here, which tells us exactly which resources we need and which model design we want to use to build these buggies, because if we had multiple buggy designs, right, they'd be listed here. Right now we only have the one design. They're called rovers. Now, it's saying items 67% and therefore total 67%. Well, it said 100 earlier. That last screen doesn't take fuel into account. So we need 140 fuel, so it's need have. So we need 140 and we only have 94 fuel. So we could build this formation, but we'd only build 67% of them because of the fuel cost. So if we go back here, we could try building an infantry unit, and as you see, we could build the whole thing because we have all the requisite parts to build that. So just for the sake of demonstration, let's just build the infantry. So we'll say raise formation, and now we have a regular infantry unit, 1,000 GIs, sitting on our capital, ready to go next turn. They can't move this turn, but next turn they'll be able to move. And just a real quick thing, it's kind of hard to see probably because of the color, but there's a 1 here. This is the 1st Independent Infantry Battalion, and these here have M's. That means militia. So these guys are all militia, but this guy, he's a regular unit. These are actual army. So next turn we'll be able to send him out and plug gaps if need to. So that's how you basically raise troops. And with that, I think the video's gone on long enough. So I think we're going to pretty much call it there. So we've talked about the councils and setting them up. We've talked about leader appointment. We discussed the all-important bureaucratic points, so we can check that one off our list of the overarching concepts that we talked about. We talked about stratagems, and we've gone a little bit into initial expansion and how to do that. So in the next video, we're going to talk about governance. So, leaders, factions, the economy and the resources, how that all works. We'll talk about the different reports in the dashboard, which is really important. We'll talk about research. We'll talk about zone management and construction. We'll go into all that kind of stuff. And we'll try and talk about diplomacy as well. But I think that's going to do it for now, folks. So if you want to leave a comment below, if you have any questions or comments or anything like that, feel free to let me know, and I'll get to it in one of the next videos. But for now, yeah, I guess I really appreciate you watching. And hopefully we'll see you in the next one. All right, take care.